This meat activates your brain faster than any cup of coffee ever could, and the memory loss you have been accepting as normal is about to end. As a physician who has spent over 20 years treating cognitive decline and metabolic disorders in older adults, I need to warn you about the most dangerous mistake people make when trying to improve their memory and mental energy. Millions believe that coffee, energy drinks, and stimulants are the answer to brain fog and memory problems. They think that if they just drink enough caffeine, take enough supplements, or try harder to focus, their mental clarity will return. But in reality, you could drink 10 cups of coffee every single day and still watch your memory deteriorate and your cognitive function decline. What almost no doctor will tell you is that there is one specific type of red meat that contains a unique combination of nutrients that literally wakes up dormant brain cells, restores memory function, and provides mental energy that lasts all day without the crash that comes from caffeine. And today, I am going to reveal exactly which meat this is, why it works faster and more powerfully than coffee, and how eating it just 3 times per week can reverse years of memory loss and restore the sharp, clear thinking you thought was gone forever. Stay with me until the very end because I have something extraordinary to share that will completely transform how you understand brain health and cognitive performance for the rest of your life. I am Dr. Marcus Richardson, a board-certified physician specializing in cognitive health and nutritional neurology, with over 2 decades of clinical experience, helping older adults reverse memory decline and reclaim their mental sharpness. And today, I want to warn you about a critical nutritional deficiency that is destroying your memory and mental energy while you waste money on caffeine that provides nothing but temporary stimulation, followed by exhaustion. Let me tell you something that the coffee industry and energy drink companies absolutely do not want you to hear. I have patients who are 55, 60, 65, even 70 years old, who come into my office exhausted and defeated. They tell me they drink coffee all day just to function. They need caffeine to wake up, caffeine to get through the morning, more caffeine in the afternoon to fight the crash. They consume energy drinks, take caffeine pills, and still they cannot remember names, cannot recall conversations from yesterday, cannot focus on tasks for more than a few minutes at a time. They feel like their brain is running on fumes, constantly sputtering and stalling no matter how much stimulation they pour into it. And the first thing I hear is, "Doctor, I have tried everything. I drink coffee, I take supplements, I exercise, but my memory keeps getting worse. Is there anything that can actually help me?" And that question, that desperation in their voice, that feeling of helplessness, it breaks my heart every single time because I know the truth. I know that caffeine is not giving them energy. It is borrowing energy from their future and leaving them more depleted than before. I know that the supplements they are taking are mostly synthetic compounds that their body cannot absorb or use effectively. I know that the real solution, the actual answer to their memory problems and mental fatigue, has nothing to do with stimulants or pills. What they need, what their brain is literally screaming for, is specific nutrients found in concentrated amounts in red meat, nutrients that cannot be obtained from any other food source in the quantities necessary to restore optimal brain function. I will tell you straight, and I need you to understand how critical this is. Your brain does not run on caffeine. Caffeine does not provide energy. It blocks adenosine receptors, creating the illusion of alertness while your brain continues to starve and deteriorate underneath that artificial stimulation. The meat I am talking about is lamb, specifically lamb from sheep that have grazed on pasture and consumed a natural diet rich in minerals from the soil. Lamb contains the highest concentration of brain-critical nutrients of any commonly available red meat. We are talking about vitamin B12 in forms that your brain can use immediately. We are talking about iron that carries oxygen to every neuron. We are talking about zinc that activates enzymes essential for memory formation. We are talking about omega-3 fatty acids in perfect ratios that build and repair brain cell membranes. We are talking about carnosine and anserine, dipeptides that protect your brain from oxidative damage and improve cognitive function. We are talking about complete protein with all essential amino acids that your brain needs to produce neurotransmitters. When you eat lamb, you are not just consuming meat. You are delivering targeted brain medicine that goes directly to your neurons and starts restoring function within hours. I have witnessed this transformation hundreds of times in my practice, and it never stops amazing me how quickly it happens. Someone comes into my office relying on 4 or 5 cups of coffee daily just to function, struggling with terrible memory, feeling mentally exhausted by early afternoon despite all the caffeine. I recommend they replace some of their meals with lamb, eating it 3 to 4 times per week. They are skeptical. They think I am crazy for suggesting that meat could be more effective than caffeine, but they are desperate enough to try. And then the magic happens. Within 3 to 4 days, they notice they wake up with more natural energy. Within 1 week, they realize they are drinking less coffee because they do not need it as desperately. Within 2 weeks, they are remembering appointments and names without constantly checking their phone. Within 1 month, they experience sustained mental energy throughout the entire day without crashes. Within 2 months, they tell me they feel mentally sharper than they have in years. And they are barely drinking coffee at all because their brain is finally receiving real fuel instead of artificial stimulation. The tragedy that keeps me awake at night is how backward our approach to brain health has become. We live in a society that consumes billions of dollars worth of coffee and energy drinks every single year, while rates of cognitive decline, dementia, and Alzheimer's disease continue to skyrocket. Meanwhile, the most powerful brain food that exists, the food that traditional cultures understood instinctively was essential for mental vitality, sits in grocery stores ignored because modern nutritional guidelines have demonized red meat without scientific justification. Lamb is not just another protein source. It is concentrated brain fuel wrapped in food form. Every bite delivers therapeutic doses of nutrients that caffeine cannot provide, nutrients that actually repair damaged neurons, restore depleted neurotransmitters, and build the cellular structures your brain needs to function optimally. And the fact that this information is not being taught in medical schools, not being shared by nutritionists, not being discussed by healthcare providers, represents a catastrophic failure that is causing immeasurable suffering to millions of people who deserve better answers. Today, right now, I am going to give you the truth that can restore your memory and mental energy permanently, not just temporarily, mask the symptoms the way caffeine does. When I talk to my patients about memory loss and mental fatigue, I always start with a truth that the coffee industry does not want you to know. Caffeine does not create energy. It does not repair your brain. It does not restore memory function. What caffeine does is block adenosine receptors in your brain, creating a temporary illusion of alertness, while the underlying problems, the actual nutritional deficiencies destroying your cognitive function, continue to worsen. Let me explain exactly what is happening in your brain when you rely on caffeine to function, because understanding this will change everything about how you approach brain health and mental energy. Adenosine is a neurotransmitter that accumulates in your brain throughout the day as a byproduct of cellular metabolism. As adenosine levels rise, it binds to receptors that signal your brain that you are tired and need rest. This is a protective mechanism. Your brain needs regular periods of rest to perform maintenance, clear out metabolic waste, and repair cellular damage. Caffeine works by blocking these adenosine receptors. When the receptors are blocked, your brain cannot detect the adenosine signal, so you do not feel tired even though your brain desperately needs rest. You feel alert and awake, but this is not real energy. This is your brain being prevented from telling you that it is exhausted and depleted. It is like putting tape over the warning lights on your car dashboard. The problems are still there and getting worse, but you cannot see the signals anymore. Here is the devastating part that nobody talks about. Every time you use caffeine to override your brain's fatigue signals, you are depleting your neurological reserves even further. Your brain still needs to produce energy, still needs to maintain neurons, still needs to synthesize neurotransmitters, still needs to clear out toxins. But now it is trying to do all of this while being forced to stay active instead of resting. The result is accelerated depletion of the nutrients your brain needs to function. Your B vitamin stores get used up faster. Your mineral reserves become exhausted. Your neurotransmitter production cannot keep pace with demand. And you experience this as the caffeine crash, that terrible feeling a few hours after your coffee when you feel even more exhausted than before, when your mental fog is even worse, when you desperately need another cup just to function at a minimal level. The real problem, the actual crisis that is destroying your memory and cognitive function, is not a lack of stimulation. It is nutritional starvation of your brain tissue. Your brain is the most metabolically demanding organ in your body. It represents only 2% of your body weight, but consumes 20% of your total energy. and requires a constant supply of specific nutrients to maintain function. When you are deficient in even one critical nutrient, neural function deteriorates, memory formation becomes impaired, recall becomes difficult, mental energy plummets, and no amount of caffeine can fix this because caffeine does not provide the nutrients your brain needs. It just masks the symptoms temporarily while the underlying damage continues. Let me give you specific examples of what nutritional deficiencies do to your brain and why caffeine cannot address them. First, vitamin B12 deficiency. This vitamin is absolutely essential for the production of myelin, the insulating coating around nerve fibers that allows rapid signal transmission. Without adequate myelin, neural signals become slow and weak. You experience this as poor memory, difficulty concentrating, and mental sluggishness. Caffeine cannot produce myelin. Only adequate B12 can restore nerve function. Second, iron deficiency. Iron is the central atom in hemoglobin that carries oxygen to your brain cells. Your neurons need constant oxygen to produce ATP, the energy molecule that powers all cellular processes. When you are iron deficient, oxygen delivery drops, ATP production declines, and neurons cannot function properly. You feel mentally exhausted, foggy, and unable to think clearly. Caffeine cannot carry oxygen. Only iron can restore proper brain oxygenation. Third, zinc deficiency. Zinc is required for the function of over 300 enzymes in your body, many of which are essential for neurotransmitter production, memory formation, and cognitive processing. When zinc is deficient, your brain cannot produce adequate amounts of dopamine, serotonin, GABA, and other neurotransmitters that control mood, focus, and mental energy. Caffeine does not provide zinc. It cannot restore neurotransmitter balance. Fourth, omega-3 fatty acid deficiency. Your brain is 60% fat by dry weight, and the majority of that fat should be omega-3 fatty acids, specifically DHA, which forms the structure of brain cell membranes. When omega-3 levels are low, cell membranes become rigid and inefficient. Neural communication deteriorates. Memory function declines. Caffeine cannot build cell membranes. Only adequate omega-3 intake can restore optimal neural structure. Let me tell you about David, a 58-year-old software engineer who came to my office consuming over 600 milligrams of caffeine daily, the equivalent of 6 cups of coffee. He had been drinking coffee for decades, but over the past 3 years he noticed that even massive amounts of caffeine were not helping his mental fog and memory problems. He would drink coffee in the morning and feel alert for 30 minutes, then crash into exhaustion. He would drink more coffee and get another brief boost followed by an even worse crash. By afternoon, he was consuming energy drinks just to stay awake at his desk. Despite all this caffeine, his memory was terrible. He forgot meetings, could not recall code he had written days before, and struggled to focus on complex problems. He was terrified of losing his job and convinced something was seriously wrong with his brain. When I ran comprehensive nutritional blood work, the picture became immediately clear. His vitamin B12 was deficient at 210 picograms per milliliter, well below the optimal range of 400 to 800. His ferritin, indicating iron stores, was critically low at 23 nanograms per milliliter, when optimal levels should be above 75 for men. His zinc was in the bottom 20th percentile. His omega-3 index, measuring the percentage of red blood cell membranes composed of EPA and DHA, was only 3.2%, when optimal levels should be above 8%. Every single nutrient his brain needed to produce energy, maintain memory, and function properly was severely deficient. The caffeine was doing nothing except temporarily masking how depleted his brain actually was. Have you been relying on coffee or energy drinks to get through your day? Have you noticed that caffeine does not work the way it used to, and your memory keeps getting worse despite drinking more? Drop a comment below and tell me about your experience, because you are not alone, and this pattern is destroying the cognitive health of millions of people. Now let me explain exactly why lamb is the most powerful natural brain fuel, and why it works faster and more effectively than any amount of coffee to restore memory and mental energy. When you eat lamb, you are not consuming empty calories or temporary stimulation. You are delivering to your brain a complete package of every nutrient it needs to generate real sustainable energy, repair damaged structures, and restore optimal cognitive function. This is not stimulation. This is restoration. This is giving your brain the actual raw materials it requires to function at its highest capacity, instead of just whipping an exhausted system to keep working. Let me break down the specific nutrients in lamb that directly impact memory and mental energy. First, vitamin B12 in the methylcobalamin and adenosylcobalamin forms, the two bioactive forms that your brain and mitochondria can use immediately without conversion. One 4-ounce serving of lamb provides approximately 3 micrograms of highly bioavailable B12, which is 125% of the minimum daily requirement. But remember, minimum requirements are designed to prevent deficiency diseases, not to optimize brain function. For optimal memory and cognitive performance, you need far more than the minimum, and lamb provides therapeutic amounts. This B12 goes directly to your neurons where it supports myelin production, enables proper nerve signaling, and facilitates energy production in mitochondria. Within hours of eating lamb, your B12 levels begin to rise, and your brain starts functioning more efficiently. Second, iron in the heme form, which is absorbed with 80 to 90% efficiency compared to only 5 to 10% for non-heme iron from plant sources. Lamb provides approximately 2 to 3 milligrams of highly bioavailable iron per 4-ounce serving. This iron is immediately available to produce hemoglobin and myoglobin, the proteins that carry oxygen to your brain tissue. When you eat lamb regularly, your iron stores increase, oxygen delivery to neurons improves, and ATP production ramps up. You experience this as sustained mental energy that lasts throughout the day without crashes. This is real energy, not borrowed energy. This is your brain cells actually producing adequate ATP to power cognitive function, instead of running on empty and being forced to continue through artificial stimulation. Third, zinc in highly bioavailable forms, bound to amino acids that enhance absorption. Lamb provides approximately 4 to 5 milligrams of zinc per 4-ounce serving. This zinc activates the enzymes required for neurotransmitter synthesis, supports the formation of new neural connections, enhances synaptic plasticity, which is the foundation of learning and memory, and protects neurons from oxidative damage. When you consume lamb regularly, zinc status improves, neurotransmitter production increases, and memory function is restored at the molecular level. You are not masking symptoms. You are fixing the underlying biochemical problems. Fourth, omega-3 fatty acids, particularly in lamb that has been pasture-raised and consumed a natural diet of grass and forbs. Grass-fed lamb contains significantly higher levels of omega-3 fatty acids compared to grain-fed lamb, with ratios approaching 1:1 omega-6 to omega-3, instead of the 20:1 ratio found in grain-fed meat. These omega-3 fatty acids, especially DHA, are directly incorporated into brain cell membranes where they improve fluidity, enhance receptor function, facilitate neurotransmitter signaling, and reduce neuroinflammation. When you eat grass-fed lamb, you are literally rebuilding your brain cell membranes with optimal structural components, creating neurons that communicate faster and more efficiently. Fifth, carnosine and anserine, two dipeptide molecules found in high concentrations in lamb muscle tissue. These compounds have remarkable neuroprotective properties. Carnosine acts as a powerful antioxidant that neutralizes reactive oxygen species and advanced glycation end products, toxic compounds that accumulate in brain tissue and accelerate cognitive decline. Anserine works synergistically with carnosine to protect neurons from oxidative stress and enhance cognitive performance. Research has shown that carnosine supplementation improves memory, attention, and mental processing speed in older adults. When you eat lamb, you get therapeutic doses of these neuroprotective compounds in natural food form, providing benefits that isolated supplements cannot match. Sixth, complete protein containing all 9 essential amino acids in optimal ratios for human metabolism. Your brain uses amino acids to synthesize neurotransmitters. Tryptophan is converted to serotonin, which regulates mood and sleep. Tyrosine is converted to dopamine and norepinephrine, which control motivation, focus, and mental energy. Glutamine is converted to glutamate and GABA, which regulate excitation and inhibition in neural circuits. When you eat lamb, you provide your brain with all the amino acid precursors it needs to maintain optimal neurotransmitter balance. This is why lamb provides sustained mental energy and improved mood, without the anxiety and jitteriness that often accompany caffeine consumption. Let me tell you about Patricia, a 64-year-old woman who had been struggling with severe memory problems and mental fatigue for over 4 years. She drank coffee constantly, starting with 2 cups in the morning and continuing throughout the day, often consuming 5 or 6 cups total. Despite all this caffeine, she felt mentally exhausted by early afternoon. Her memory was so poor that she would forget conversations within hours, could not remember where she placed items, and struggled to follow the plots of television shows. She was convinced she was developing dementia and was terrified of what her future held. When I evaluated her nutritional status, I found multiple severe deficiencies. Her B12 was barely detectable at 160 picograms per milliliter. Her ferritin was 20 nanograms per milliliter, indicating depleted iron stores. Her zinc was in the bottom 10th percentile. I recommended she stop relying on coffee for energy and instead eat lamb 3 to 4 times per week, 4 to 6 ounces per serving. She was skeptical that food could be more effective than caffeine, but she was desperate enough to try. The transformation was remarkable and happened much faster than even I expected. Within 5 days, she noticed she woke up feeling more rested and did not crave coffee immediately. Within 2 weeks, she was down to 1 cup of coffee in the morning and did not need more. Within 4 weeks, her memory had improved so dramatically that she could recall entire conversations and remember details from days before. Within 8 weeks, she had stopped drinking coffee entirely because she did not need it. Her brain was finally receiving real fuel, real nutrients, and it was functioning properly for the first time in years. Before we continue, I want to ask you something important. Have you tried to improve your memory and energy with coffee or supplements but found that nothing really works long-term? Comment below and share your frustration, because understanding that these approaches fail will help you embrace the solution that actually works. When I explain the lamb and brain function connection to patients, many immediately ask about concerns they have heard repeated for decades. Is red meat not bad for your heart? Will it not raise cholesterol? Is it not linked to cancer? These are valid questions that deserve honest, evidence-based answers using current research, not outdated dietary dogma from the 1970s that has since been thoroughly debunked. So let me address each of these concerns directly with what the science actually shows and what I have observed in over 20 years of clinical practice with thousands of patients. First, the belief that red meat causes heart disease. This claim is based primarily on observational studies that confound red meat consumption with other unhealthy behaviors like smoking, sedentary lifestyle, and high intake of processed foods and refined carbohydrates. When you control for these confounding factors and look specifically at unprocessed red meat like lamb consumed as part of a nutrient-dense diet, the association with heart disease disappears. Multiple recent meta-analyses have found no significant association between unprocessed red meat and cardiovascular disease. In fact, some studies show that adequate intake of nutrients found abundantly in lamb, including vitamin B12, iron, and zinc, is associated with better cardiovascular outcomes because these nutrients support optimal metabolism, reduce inflammation, and improve endothelial function. What actually matters for heart health is not whether you eat red meat, but the overall quality of your diet and your metabolic health. When you eat lamb alongside vegetables, eliminate processed foods and refined sugars, and maintain healthy body composition, your cardiovascular risk factors improve, your triglycerides decrease, your HDL good cholesterol increases, your inflammatory markers drop. The notion that lamb or other red meats are inherently bad for your heart is not supported by high-quality evidence when you isolate red meat from the context of an otherwise unhealthy dietary pattern. Second, the cholesterol concern. Yes, lamb contains cholesterol and saturated fat. Many people fear this will raise their blood cholesterol and increase disease risk, but decades of research have definitively proven that dietary cholesterol has minimal impact on blood cholesterol levels for approximately 75% of people. Your liver produces approximately 1,000 to 2,000 milligrams of cholesterol every single day because cholesterol is essential for life. When you consume cholesterol from food, your liver simply reduces internal production to maintain balance. Additionally, the type of cholesterol particles in your blood matters far more than total cholesterol levels. The nutrients in lamb, particularly the omega-3 fatty acids from grass-fed sources, actually shift your cholesterol profile toward larger, less dense LDL particles which are protective rather than harmful. Furthermore, cholesterol is absolutely critical for brain function. Your brain contains 25% of all the cholesterol in your body, Despite being only 2% of your body weight, cholesterol is required for synapse formation, neurotransmitter receptor function, and myelin production. Low cholesterol levels have been associated with increased risk of depression, cognitive decline, poor memory, and even increased mortality in older adults. When you eat cholesterol-rich foods like lamb, you are providing your brain with a critical structural component it needs to function optimally. The fear of dietary cholesterol is outdated and not supported by current neuroscience. Third, the cancer concern, specifically the claim that red meat increases colon cancer risk. This association comes primarily from observational studies that cannot prove causation, and that often fail to distinguish between unprocessed red meat like lamb and processed meats like bacon, sausages, and deli meats which contain preservatives, nitrates, and other potentially harmful additives. When you look specifically at unprocessed red meat in the context of a healthy diet rich in vegetables and fiber, the association with cancer is weak at best and may be entirely confounded by other dietary and lifestyle factors. Additionally, the nutrients in lamb, including zinc, selenium, and carnosine, have documented anti-cancer properties that may provide protective effects. Now let me explain the deeper mechanisms by which lamb consumption specifically improves memory and cognitive function beyond the direct nutrient effects. One of the most important is the reduction of homocysteine, a toxic amino acid that accumulates when B vitamins are deficient. Elevated homocysteine damages blood vessel walls throughout your body, including the tiny capillaries in your brain. This damage impairs blood flow, reduces oxygen delivery, and creates chronic inflammation in brain tissue. The combination of vitamin B12, folate, and vitamin B6 found in lamb works synergistically to convert homocysteine into harmless compounds that can be excreted. As homocysteine levels drop, vascular health improves, brain blood flow increases, and cognitive function is restored. Another critical mechanism is the improvement in mitochondrial function. Your brain cells contain thousands of mitochondria each, the cellular organelles that produce ATP. As we age, mitochondrial function declines due to oxidative damage, nutrient deficiencies, and accumulated mutations in mitochondrial DNA. The iron, B vitamins, and coenzyme Q10 found in lamb directly support mitochondrial energy production. Iron is essential for the electron transport chain that generates ATP. B vitamins are cofactors for enzymes in the citric acid cycle. Coenzyme Q10 is a critical component of the electron transport chain. By optimizing mitochondrial function, lamb consumption dramatically increases the energy available to neurons, powering faster thinking, better memory, and sustained mental performance. There is also a profound effect on neuroinflammation, chronic low-grade inflammation in brain tissue that impairs cognitive function. Neuroinflammation is driven by oxidative stress, poor diet, lack of sleep, and chronic stress. The zinc and selenium in lamb have potent anti-inflammatory effects. They reduce activation of microglia, the immune cells in your brain that release inflammatory chemicals when overactivated. They decrease production of inflammatory cytokines like interleukin-6 and tumor necrosis factor alpha. They enhance the activity of antioxidant enzymes that neutralize reactive oxygen species. As neuroinflammation decreases, neurons function more efficiently, synaptic connections strengthen, and memory improves. Additionally, lamb supports optimal neurotransmitter balance in ways that caffeine cannot. Dopamine, the neurotransmitter of motivation and reward, requires iron and copper for its synthesis. Serotonin, which regulates mood and memory consolidation, requires vitamin B6 and tryptophan. Norepinephrine, which controls alertness and attention, requires vitamin C and copper. GABA, the calming neurotransmitter, requires vitamin B6 and glutamine. Lamb provides all of these precursors and cofactors simultaneously, allowing your brain to maintain optimal neurotransmitter production. This creates sustained mental energy, stable mood, and sharp cognitive function without the peaks and crashes of caffeine. Remember at the very beginning I promised you something extraordinary that would transform how you understand brain health and cognitive performance? Here it is, and this truth could change your life starting today. The gift is this understanding. Your brain does not need stimulation, it needs nutrition. Memory loss is not a stimulation deficiency. Mental fatigue is not a caffeine deficiency. The cognitive decline you have been experiencing, The memory problems that have been frustrating you, the mental fog that has been stealing your quality of life, these are not problems that can be solved by drinking more coffee or taking more supplements. These are nutritional deficiencies, pure and simple, and they respond rapidly and dramatically to proper nutrition, specifically to regular consumption of nutrient-dense red meat like lamb. This changes everything because it means you have direct control over your cognitive function. You are not helpless. You are not at the mercy of genetics or inevitable aging. Every time you choose to eat lamb instead of relying on caffeine, every time you nourish your brain with real nutrients instead of artificial stimulation, you are actively restoring your memory, rebuilding your cognitive capacity, and reclaiming the mental sharpness you thought was gone forever. This is not management. This is restoration. This is healing at the cellular level. Now let me give you the exact step-by-step protocol to restore your memory and mental energy using lamb starting immediately. First, commit to eating lamb at least 3 times per week, with each serving being 4 to 6 ounces of cooked meat. This provides consistent, therapeutic amounts of all the brain-critical nutrients without overwhelming your system. Choose high-quality lamb whenever possible. Grass-fed, pasture-raised lamb from sheep that graze naturally has superior nutrient density, higher omega-3 content, and better mineral profiles compared to grain-fed lamb. You can find this at farmers markets, specialty butchers, or online suppliers. If grass-fed is not available or affordable, conventional lamb is still extraordinarily beneficial and far superior to not eating lamb at all. Second, learn to prepare lamb in ways that maximize nutrient retention and create delicious, satisfying meals. Lamb has a naturally rich, slightly sweet flavor that many people find more appealing than beef. Here are my recommended preparation methods. For lamb chops, season with sea salt, black pepper, fresh rosemary, and crushed garlic. Sear in a hot cast iron skillet with butter or tallow for 3 to 4 minutes per side until medium rare. Let rest for 5 minutes before serving. The result is tender, flavorful meat that requires minimal preparation. For ground lamb, use it to make burgers, meatballs, or shepherd's pie. Season generously with herbs like mint, oregano, and thyme, which complement lamb's flavor beautifully. Cook ground lamb with onions, garlic, and tomatoes for a nutrient-dense sauce that pairs perfectly with vegetables. For lamb shoulder or leg roasts, use slow cooking methods that create incredibly tender meat. Season the roast with salt, pepper, garlic, and rosemary. Place in a slow cooker or Dutch oven with some bone broth or water. Cook on low heat for 6 to 8 hours until the meat is fall-apart tender. This method is foolproof and creates enough meat for multiple meals throughout the week. You can portion it out and reheat as needed, making it extremely convenient for busy schedules. For lamb stew, cut lamb shoulder into chunks, brown in a pot with tallow or butter, then add vegetables like carrots, celery, and turnips along with bone broth and herbs. Simmer for 2 to 3 hours until the meat is tender and the flavors have melded together. Third, strategically reduce your caffeine consumption as you increase lamb intake. Do not quit caffeine abruptly, as this can cause withdrawal symptoms, including severe headaches, fatigue, and irritability. Instead, gradually decrease your coffee consumption over 2 to 3 weeks. If you currently drink 5 cups per day, reduce to 4 cups for 3 to 4 days, then 3 cups, then 2 cups, continuing this pattern until you are down to 0 or 1 cup per day maximum. As you reduce caffeine, you will notice that your natural energy improves because your brain is no longer being artificially stimulated and then crashed repeatedly. The nutrients from lamb provide sustained, real energy that does not require constant stimulation to maintain. Fourth, combine lamb consumption with other brain-supporting strategies to maximize and accelerate your results. Ensure adequate sleep, 7 to 9 hours per night in a cool, dark room. Sleep is when your brain consolidates memories, clears metabolic waste through the glymphatic system, and repairs cellular damage. No amount of nutrition can compensate for chronic sleep deprivation. Engage in regular physical activity, particularly activities that elevate your heart rate and increase blood flow to your brain. Even brisk walking for 30 minutes daily provides significant cognitive benefits. Challenge your brain with novel activities like learning a new skill, reading complex material, or engaging in meaningful social interactions. These activities create demand for neural function, and the nutrients from lamb provide the raw materials to meet that demand. Fifth, Track your progress systematically so you can observe the real improvements happening in your memory and mental energy. Keep a simple daily log rating your mental clarity, memory function, energy levels, and mood on a scale of 1 to 10. Note how much caffeine you consumed and how you felt throughout the day. After 4 weeks of consistent lamb consumption and reduced caffeine intake, review your log and notice the patterns. Most people see dramatic improvements within 2 to 4 weeks, often reporting better memory, more stable energy, improved mood, and elimination of the afternoon crash that used to plague them. Now, I must provide important medical guidance. If you have gout or elevated uric acid levels, consult your physician before significantly increasing red meat intake, as purines in meat can potentially trigger gout attacks in susceptible individuals. If you have kidney disease, discuss protein intake with your nephrologist as high-protein diets may need to be modified. If you are taking medications for any chronic conditions, inform your doctor about dietary changes as improved nutrition may require medication adjustments. These situations require medical supervision, but do not necessarily preclude lamb consumption. The power to restore your memory, eliminate your dependence on caffeine, and reclaim sharp, clear thinking is available to you right now. You do not need more coffee. You do not need energy drinks. You do not need expensive nootropic supplements that do not work. You need real nutrition that feeds your brain instead of artificially stimulating it. Eat lamb 3 times per week. Prepare it deliciously so you actually enjoy eating it. Gradually reduce caffeine as your natural energy returns. Support your brain with sleep, exercise, and mental stimulation. Give your neurons the nutrients they desperately need instead of forcing them to function on empty. And watch as your memory returns, as your mental fog clears, as sustained energy replaces the exhausting caffeine cycle, as you rediscover what it feels like to think clearly and remember easily. Your brain is capable of remarkable recovery. Feed it properly starting today.